Wake up, everybody. Welcome into Redacted on this Tuesday. I'm Clayton Morris.
I'm Natalie Morris.
And on this show, we cover the stories the mainstream media largely ignores, although the mainstream media right now is manufacturing consent for war, whether it's CNN or any of the other major news networks. They desperately want the United States to go to war with Iran for a regime change operation. All you need to do is look at all the guests they're putting on their air over the past 24 hours. They're all pushing for regime change and the United States to be a major player in this.
And this is a template we have seen before several times. Remember weapons of mass destruction? We're here. That's happening. It is literally the same template because it worked so well the first time around, I guess. So many people are just buying it. Lock, stock, and barrel. Yep. Iran was threatening us. It's necessary. All of that. That's what the dog thinks of it.
Yeah. And by the way, how long until Tulsi Gabbard is out of a job or quits the administration right now? Because it is not looking good. We're going to get to that part of the story in just a moment.
Clayton brought salami.
I know, I made the
studio,
mistake.
and the dog is going crazy. I don't know why you thought that this would be quiet.
We were busy this morning. We had a whole slew of interviews this morning. I didn't eat anything, so I'm like...
You hear the dog. Normally, he stays quite quiet during the show, but, that's not when you bring meat into the studio. All right, we're also going to talk about what this means for our own economy, because if you think that this war won't reach into our own pockets, you have no understanding of global politics and global economies. Peter St. Onge does, and he's going to explain this to us.
All right, so we got a lot of news we're going to get to today. We're going to talk about the G7. We're going to talk about all of this, plus dogs barking in the background. But first, I want to tell you about our friends over at Chapter, because a close friend of ours just saved tens of thousands of dollars on Medicare. And I want you to know how they did it, so you can do it too. Medicare enrollment is complicated. It's no accident. The more confused you are, the easier it is for big insurance to steer you into an overpriced plan that makes them more money. Trump's Department of Justice just sued 3 of the biggest brokers in America for allegedly doing just that. It's disgusting. But there is now a way to fight back, and that's where Chapter comes in. They're honest, they're independent. Chapter's licensed advisors search every Medicare plan to find what's best for you. They go through thousands of them. Our friend made one simple phone call to Chapter, and now he's saving tens of thousands of dollars going forward. The call is 100% free, no pressure, just real honest help. The average person saves $1,100 working with Chapter. So if you're turning 65 or already on Medicare, call the number on your screen, connect with Chapter today. You'll be glad you did. Guess what? I mean, the best part is Chapter is free. That's right. They are a free resource for our audience. So call them today. Go to askchapter.org/redacted. Again, that's askchapter.org/redacted. All right, we got a friend here who's going to try. There goes Grover down there. Okay, let's talk about this. So I want you all to remember something as we bring you up to date on the Iran-Israel war. This was never about Iran getting a nuclear weapon. That was irrelevant. It was. All right, I got to stop this for a second, buddy. You need to relax. This is it. There, take it and leave. This is all I got for you.
Maybe put the package down
take it,
so that he knows.
There, it's gone. There you go. All right.
That'll teach us.
Man, I just wanted some salami and some cheese. That was my snack, and I can't have it.
All right.
I can't have it. All right.
Our dogs are barking, literally.
My God, thanks, Grover. Thanks for the help. All right. My God, that's some levity because it's like a world gone crazy today. I mean, it really is. And what's happening right now in the Middle East should frighten all of us, and it's really, really devastating. So let's talk about this. I'm going to reset here. So I want you all to remember something as we bring you up to date on the Iran-Israel war. This was never about Iran getting a nuclear weapon. That was irrelevant. It was always about regime change in Iran, just like the regime in Iraq or Libya or Syria. Nuclear weapons were always a canard, a straw man to use in order to carry out regime change. And today we're seeing Israel and the neocons in Washington starting to admit the truth, like this jackass.
Chapter on the largest state sponsor of terrorism in modern history. We got a chance to end a threat to the state of Israel forever by replacing this regime with something better. And I do believe the biggest winner of the Ayatollah leaving would be the Iranian people. So pray for our troops in harm's way. There are risks associated with any operation.
Just pray for them.
No, let's not put them there or let's protect them. just pray for them, spoken like someone who has no one that they want to protect.
Yeah, no kids. He's not married. I mean, I don't know who his husband is or whatever, but like he doesn't have anybody that he that's involved in this. So it's fine. It's fine for your kids to be sitting ducks and cannon fodder right now.
And tell me what countries Iran is attacking and bombing on a daily basis, like the U.S. Like what all countries are they messing with? Just out of curiosity.
Has Iran hit the United States in any kind of attack? Maybe I'm missing that.
Well, the neocons would say that Iran had a hand in the assassination attempts on Donald Trump, that Iran has been funding Hezbollah and Hamas, and that Iran continues to threaten, and that they hate Israelis. I don't want to say Israelis, that they hate Jews is the official narrative that you are asked to bite on. Therefore, we must destroy them.
Yeah, we have to destroy them. And by creating regime change in Iran, Israel is standing up for you, the Americans. That's what Benjamin Netanyahu just posted. Watch.
I mean, this is an outrageous, radical, fanatic regime, and the time has come to defang them and to stand up against evil. That's what we're doing. But in so doing, I think we're also I know we're also standing up for you, for our Arab neighbors, for people around the world, and indeed, even for the United States, because they're trying to build ballistic missiles that will reach the eastern seaboard of the United States. So everybody is under threat from this criminal regime, and somebody had to act to stop it, and that's what we're doing.
Oh,
I have a question for you.
Yeah.
I have a question. Why didn't that work for Zelensky when he told the United States that if we don't stop Russia, then they're coming for us? That was the same thing that Zelensky said in the Oval Office, and Trump and Vance gave him a spanking. Why is that fine now? Why is it okay for a world leader to say that now?
It's a little something called a double standard. So when Benjamin Netanyahu speaks, he is basically the president of the United States. So when Benjamin Netanyahu speaks, Americans have to listen. You have to fall in line behind Benjamin Netanyahu. We've always done his bidding when he got us into destroying Libya, when we went after Iraq and killed Saddam Hussein for a regime change operation. He told us that Iraq was getting nuclear weapons material. Total lie. It didn't matter. Millions of people died, and we did his bidding. So now the third part of this stool is Iran, of course. As Henry Mann, thank you for your $10 super chat, says, okay, let me make a clarification. No further involvement in the Iran-Israel war. Yeah, that's our position on this show. Absolutely not, full stop. So it's not about nuclear weapons. It's all about regime change. That's what this is, full stop. So we've got a lot of major developments that happened overnight, over the last few minutes, actually. We'll get to all of that in a second. But first, the U.S. seems ready to fully enter this war. And Peace President Donald Trump just warned the civilian population of Tehran to immediately evacuate. Iran should have signed the deal, he said. I told them to sign. What a shame. What a waste of human life. Simply stated, Iran cannot have a nuclear weapon. I said it over and over again. Everyone should immediately evacuate Tehran.
Just so you know, airspace is closed in Iran. So you have to drive.
Where are you going to go? Again, between 9 and 15 million people live in Tehran metro area. Just find an Airbnb while we destroy your city. Axios reporting a short time ago that Trump is seriously considering entering a U.S. strike on Iran. Meanwhile, Trump is speaking of both sides of his mouth because, he said, we now have complete and total control over the skies over Iran. Iran had good sky trackers and other defensive equipment and plenty of it, but it doesn't compare to American-made, conceived, and manufactured stuff. Nobody does it better than the good old USA. But wait a second. So we're directly involved in this now? We always knew we were.
Over the weekend, the messaging was, this was a unilateral. We had nothing to do with it. Do not strike our troops.
Yeah, can we put that one up?
Who can follow this?
Put that one up. So, yeah, on Friday, the U.S. had nothing to do with this, with the attack on Iran tonight. If we're attacked in any way, shape, or form by Iran, the full strength and might of the U.S. Armed Forces will come down on you.
Now we have full control because our stuff is the best and our people are the best? What are we supposed to take away from that?
He also just posted this about assassinating a foreign leader. We can go back one slide here, Philip. We know exactly where the so-called supreme leader is hiding. He's an easy target, but is safe there. We're not going to take him out, kill him, at least for now. But we don't want missiles shot at civilians or American soldiers. Our patience is wearing thin. Thank you for your attention to this matter. So in other words, just going to assassinate foreign leaders now? Like, We're just posting that on social media? What?
Don't pretend that's new. Remember Gaddafi, Hussein?
Yeah. The list is pretty endless at this point.
Soleimani.
Yeah. Soleimani. Yeah.
Yeah.
So the cat is out of the bag here. We are fully involved in this. That's why members of Congress are now taking to pen to paper. And Thomas Massey here, Representative Thomas Massey of Kentucky. I just introduced an Iran war powers resolution with the Democrat, Representative Ro Khanna, to prohibit U.S. involvement in the Israel-Iran war. This is not our war. Even if it were, Congress must decide such matters according to our Constitution.
Now, interestingly enough, there are Democrats coming out and echoing this sentiment. We saw overnight that AOC, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, says, I will sign up for this bill. When Thomas Massey first floated it, we see Democratic leaders, David Hogg, speaking out against a new war. We've seen Liz Warren speak out against it. We've seen Bernie Sanders. Now, those people branded themselves as anti-war under the Obama administration, but went full war under the Biden administration for Ukraine. So we can't actually know what they're doing strategically. This is very smart because they can win the midterms on an anti-war platform. They don't have to mean it because Trump obviously won the presidency on an anti-war platform that he doesn't seem to mean. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe there's a secret strategy, but it does not seem that he remembers that anti-war platform that got him elected. Obama won on an anti-war platform, and he droned more civilians in the Middle East, specifically children, than Bush before him. So they can get elected on this and not have to mean it. So we can watch Democrats take this on. Don't believe either of them.
I don't believe either. I mean, Trump ran on being the peace president right now and actively threatening to assassinate a world leader of 90 million people, by the way. Stephen Hightower says in our chat room, thank you for the $5 super chat, says, if Trump goes through with this, he will be wondering why next year he might be impeached. He will have no political capital. Well, you're seeing a fracturing in the MAGA movement right now as if that's the biggest concern. But you're absolutely seeing the neocons showing their faces. All the neocons are coming out right now and throwing their support behind regime change, Lindsey Graham and all these other scumbags. And then you have, you have libertarians. I call them like George Washington conservatives who want to isolate America. They do not want to be involved in foreign wars. I think that's kind of my position here. Tucker Carlson, Alex Jones, others saying, no, absolutely not. Marjorie Taylor Greene and others. But right now, all of the news media is fully in the camp right now of going to war. So right now, is the U.S. already involved? Well, just a short time ago, according to OSINT Defender, close to 20 U.S. Air Force KC-315s and KC-46 aerial refueling tankers just lifted off this morning from air bases across Europe, heading in the direction of the Middle East to help Israel refuel. Germany's already been actively involved in refueling efforts. Also hidden in the news, Reuters is reporting that the U.S. al-Shaddadi patrol base in northeastern Syria was attacked by Iranian missiles. However, it's unclear if Iran fired those missiles or someone else did. Remember, Reuters, of course, is a mouthpiece of MI6 in the UK, so it would be a perfect false flag event. And before you laugh and say, that would never happen, just remember the USS Liberty, and it'll wipe that smile right off your smug face. U.S. soldiers being used as cannon fodder to justify entering a war. We have a long history of doing it. Gulf of Tonkin, Pearl Harbor, USS Liberty, look it up, educate yourselves. 9/11. But most of you, of course, know that to be the case. So this would not be surprising at all. Major attacks in the last few hours in Iran, lots of attacks in Iran. Here you're looking at a warehouse near Isfahan in central Iran. This was a little bit earlier, where we're seeing attacks where they're claiming, of course, that missiles are being housed in these warehouses. Also, according to eyewitnesses in Iran, heavy strikes just hit in the last few hours against targets in central Iran. These hit surface air missile sites. Israel's ability to attack us in Israel is being degraded at this point because of our attacks on Iran's missile sites. That is coming from Israeli intelligence sources. Israel just released this footage of strikes against Iran's Air Force in Tehran. They blew up 2 F-14 Tomcats. By the way, these are the same jets that Tom Cruise flies in the very first Top Gun movie in the mid-1980s. They are ancient at this point. They are 51 years old. And Iran is currently the only country in the world that still uses them as part of their Air Force. So I don't know, maybe Iran was like, hey, we'll put these out there as like sitting duck targets.
Decoys. Yeah.
Decoys, like, these things haven't flown in 20 years, but hey, maybe you want to wipe them off, then we'll get some new aircraft. Russia we'll get some new ones from China and Russia and North Korea. Who knows? But Israel also destroyed Iran's news agency, hitting them while they were live on the air broadcasting. Here you're seeing the fire, the building on fire. This is again this would be like, hitting Fox News while they're live on the air, live on television. Watch this. Here was the moment that happened. That's being shared all over Israel right now, and they're celebrating this attack on Iranian television. They've been Iran, for their part, over the last 45 minutes to an hour, has been striking back big time. Of course, this is getting very little media coverage, of course, in the West. It's all about how Iran is nearly dead, how they're almost wiped off the face of the map. Again, the propaganda is in full swing here. You really, really, really have to dig deep to see that that's not the case. They launched a barrage of missiles targeting Israel, hitting targets across Tel Aviv. Here, this happened in the past 24 hours, hitting Mossad's headquarters. That'd be like hitting the CIA headquarters. Also, Iran struck targets in broad daylight when we're told that they have sky superiority. So they hit them in Tel Aviv, in Herzliya. The IDF also sent a warning to Israelis: hide in their bunkers, not supposed to go outside until you're told to do so. And this about 45 minutes ago, reporting from The Guardian.
They cannot leave.
This is Iran this is downtown Tel Aviv.
Okay, Israel struck first and then locked down their airspace using their own people as bait to drag us into a larger war. They cannot leave. They can drive, they can take boats, but they knew as soon as they hit Iran on Friday, they declared a state of emergency knowing their own people would die. So don't pretend that this is about saving civilians, because it's not.
By the way, the term nothing to see here, it's just anti-Semitism. Ricardo, that ship has sailed. Okay, get out. All right. Stop using that stupid ass argument here about anti-Semitism. This is about a World War III moment right now.
You are deflating that term. It happens in real life, but it is not because of anti-war stance. So fuck off.
You cannot conflate the two things. It's ridiculous.
Yeah.
All right. Now, meanwhile, this is a big piece of the story right now. Tulsi Gabbard. Sources telling Redacted today that she might be on the way out, that she might be leaving the DNI. We don't know if that's the case yet. There hasn't been any update on that in the last few hours, but you can understand why. Tulsi Gabbard here just a few weeks ago, sitting in front of Congress, telling her that Iran had no plans to develop nuclear weapons. Watch this.
The IC continues to assess that Iran is not building a nuclear weapon, and Supreme Leader Khamenei has not authorized the nuclear weapons program that he suspended in 2003. The IC continues to monitor closely if Tehran decides to reauthorize its nuclear weapons program.
Okay, so that was a few weeks ago. Then, according to Jennifer Griffin, Fox News Channel, Fox News' Peter Doocy reports that ODNI Tulsi Gabbard was left out of a meeting to discuss Israel and Iran at Camp David on Sunday, so she wasn't invited. Per Peter Doocy, we can report via U.S. official that DNI Tulsi Gabbard was not invited to last week's Camp David retreat where President Trump convened senior national security officials to discuss the Middle East. They said, it was just a scheduling conflict.
So can we go down
scheduling conflict? Are you out of your mind? You go to Camp David to talk about World War III. There's nothing more important than that meeting.
A dance recital.
I downloaded a movie on Netflix and it expires in 24 hours, so I can't.
Right.
Yeah.
I got to watch this thing, otherwise I'm going to lose it. It's a scheduling conflict.
So can we talk about the people that were used to get Donald Trump elected, that endeared us to that campaign because they were independents and spoke truth about the war? Tucker Carlson, now Elon Musk, and Tulsi Gabbard, all of them being isolated as the Trump administration marches towards war. Why? What? It's okay. Now, recently, in just the last few hours, CNN is reporting that Tulsi Gabbard was right. And in fact, U.S. intelligence has no intelligence that Iran had a nuclear weapon or was even close. They said it was at least 3 years away. We knew that because we'd been trying to study the so-called proof that the Obama administration used to sanction Iran because of this threat of a nuclear weapon, and they never were able to. So we know that this is not true. We know that the International Atomic Agency is corrupted. They went to the Zaporizhzhia nuclear plant that Ukraine was bombing and said they couldn't figure out who was bombing it. We know that they are a mouthpiece of the United States and its war agenda. So we also know we never had proof of this, and we may never need it until 20 years later we can admit that there was no weapons of mass destruction. This will happen. Now, President Trump says he feels pretty confident, though, that Iran probably did. He said he thinks so, and he threw Tulsi Gabbard under the bus. Watch.
Mr. President, you've always said that you don't believe Iran should be able to have a nuclear weapon. But how close do you personally think that they were to getting one? Because Tulsi Gabbard testified in March that the intelligence community said Iran wasn't building a nuclear weapon.
I don't care what she said. I think they were very close to having it.
Okay,
I think so. That's good enough for me.
Yeah, that's fine. All right. If he thinks he did, then even if Iran thought about a nuclear weapon, it's all good. So, game on. Seriously, though, think is our new guiding foreign policy now. And it doesn't matter, though, what Tulsi Gabbard said. Meanwhile, the legacy media is part of this process, manufacturing consent for war. Watch this. Right after Iran struck Israel's version of the Pentagon, Israel apparently told Fox News that, hey, you can't show the world what happened. Fox News admitting this live on the air. Watch Laura Ingraham basically say, yeah, I know Israel doesn't want our cameras to show you what happened there, but can you maybe just tell us? Like, wait, they're telling us what we can show on cameras? We're the media. We're the press. Why are you dictating terms? Watch.
Trey, I know they don't want you to show it, but how badly was their version of the Pentagon, Israel's version of the Pentagon, hit by these attacks?
I know they don't want you to show it. I'm looking at it right now. I don't. To his credit, though, he did turn the cameras around and show it. But really, I know they don't want you to show it. How do you know that?
Our paymasters have said so.
Yeah. How do you know that they don't want you to? Did the IDF tell you, like, don't put this on Fox News, don't put this on CNN, like, keep this stuff quiet?
That's journalism?
That's journalism, baby. And meanwhile, all you need to know about how these warmongers are operating right now, just look at who these people are platforming. You're getting all of these warmongers and neocons and these people who've for years wanted us to go to war with Iran all over television, like General Jack Keane. Regime change. Watch.
It is in the United States' core national interest to help Israel destroy completely this nuclear enterprise. And Fordow sits out there as a potential target that Israeli is challenged by. It's not that they don't have imagination. It's not that they couldn't do some surprising things. None of that certainly would be off the table.
Yeah, okay. So regime change. All right. Hey, thank you guys so much for subscribing to the show. We are live. We are live every day at 4 p.m. Eastern time, covering the news the media will ignore. Thank you for subscribing. We've got a lot more to get to because what about the economy right now? Gas prices already going up. How would this destroy the United States economy, European economy? Gas prices $30 a barrel. Could that happen? $300 a barrel. Peter St. Onge is going to join us in moments on that story.
All right, but first we want to tell you about our friends over at Shopify, because if you have an idea and you want to launch a store to the world, Shopify is where you start. If you head on over to shopify.com/redacted, you get everything you need to grow your business and launch. And in fact, what you're looking at there is the Redacted store, which also runs on Shopify. So when we have an idea of something that we might like to launch to the world in the Redacted store, we use Shopify. We can draft up an idea, launch it quickly. If we have a problem, Shopify will help us. They handle the front end, the back end. You can make a beautiful website, and you can at the same time handle all the money that you're going to make when you launch your store to the world. You can sign up right now for a 1-month trial period today if you go to shopify.com/redacted. And again, they have everything that you need to grow your business, launch yourself to the world, make $1 million on your wonderful idea, launch beautiful you into the ether using Shopify. Again, they will help you every step of the way and you get stuck. They have great customer service. Shopify.com/redacted.
Oil prices right now up to $73. It's up 4% already today, oil prices. Crude oil futures today up significantly.
Well, if the U.S. goes to full-scale war with Iran, it won't just be a foreign policy disaster. It could be an economic earthquake. Just when we are seeing progress in the American economy, this may be coming. Oil analysts are already warning that crude prices could skyrocket past $150 a barrel, triggering global inflation, energy shortages, a potential recession that would make 2008 look like a fun picnic. Our guest today is economist Peter St. Onge, one of the sharpest critics of central planning, reckless spending, and now war-driven economic fallout. So let's break it down. Peter, what do you think? Is this scare tactics that the war would result in global inflation, or is there real threat here?
So 300 is, I think, hyped. That's coming from the Iraqi foreign minister. Iraq is sympathetic to Iran. Part of that is because it's the neighbor, and if there's a real war in Iran, then they're going to have a humanitarian crisis in Iraq. It's going to be blowback. Some of that is also just that the Iraqi government is sympathetic to Iran. So we spent over $1 trillion giving Iran an ally, so that was smart. But 300 is definitely an outlier. Just for argument's sake, if we did get $300 oil, you'd be looking at something like $12 a gallon gas, 10% inflation. That would be an absolute catastrophe. It's also unlikely. If we sort of go back to the real world, JP Morgan, Mizuho, Deutsche Bank, they're all looking at scenarios about 120 to 115 oil. Now, that's still very high. You mentioned earlier it's at 72 right now, so that's almost a doubling of oil prices. That would take us to something like $5 gasoline. It would take inflation to 4 or 5% if it kept going. So that would wipe out all of Trump's inflation gains. He's been doing great so far. Inflation's been about 1.5%. So he did what he promised, which was get rid of Biden inflation. If he starts a real war in Iran, that's going to completely reverse that. You'll also have other knock-on effects to it. You have financial markets, you have repricing of assets. The $300 scenario, I think the only way that that's really going to happen is if you get a blockade of the Straits of Hormuz. So the straits themselves are something like 21 nautical miles, but the shipping lanes are closer to 6 miles. 6 miles is roughly the Hudson River at New York. Okay, that's a very, very narrow, and that runs all alongside Iran. If that is threatened, then you get to a scenario where Persian Gulf oil could be theoretically blockaded. That does two things. One of them is the flow of oil. So back in the 70s, a lot of Persian Gulf oil went to the U.S. That's not the case anymore. We have our own oil. It actually doesn't even make up much of Europe's oil anymore. So only about 6% of Europe's supply comes out of the Persian Gulf. What it does do is it kneecaps China. So about 1/3 of the oil used in China comes from the Persian Gulf. This is true across all of Asia, India, Singapore, Japan. All of them are deeply reliant on Persian Gulf oil. If that cuts off, you're going to have a crisis in those countries. But of course, the way that world oil markets work is that even if you're not using any Persian Gulf oil, still, if China or Japan cannot get their oil, they're going to be in a desperate search. They're going to bid up Texas oil. They're going to bid it up everywhere else. It's going to be an absolute payday for Russia, incidentally. So in terms of, crossed wires on foreign policy, but that could get us to 130. It could even get us higher than that if there's a proper blockade.
Have you heard this term, Peter, the doom economy? This term I've started learning about over the past couple of months, this idea that there's a collaboration really between like the military industrial complex, the media, and government intelligence agencies basically pushing the American public to become, I guess the word is sympathetic to a long drawn out war, that we would be somehow sympathetic to the idea of going fully into a war with Iran because it would be they would set the stage for us to be sympathetic for it. What do you think about the doom economy argument in all of this?
Well, I think the logic of it is impeccable. I mean, war, next to central banking, war is the most profitable activity that a government can visit upon its citizens. So I have no doubt that, any business, you've got a product, In the case of wars, you can't really sell it forever. Eventually, people get sick of paying for Afghanistan. So you got to have this constant stream of new wars coming in to keep the money flowing. So I'm absolutely sympathetic. There's a ton of money in war. It's bipartisan. They're very smart in who they bribe. They spread their bets out. They buy weapons from an Alabama factory, New Mexico factory. They keep everybody on side. So I think without a doubt, governments, honestly, probably for a millennia, probably go back to the Roman Empire. And that's been the case where governments have a very, very deep incentive to excite people about war. And unfortunately, when it comes to war, there's this sort of human instinct to view it very heroically, like the sacrifices are something beautiful. If you look at the Blitz during World War II, for example, any British propaganda about the war, they're going to celebrate how amazing the Blitz was, here we were in the subway tunnels having tea. And, people never stop and say, well, maybe you could have prevented the war, earlier.
Right.
Yeah. Maybe you guys should have talked in 1914 or 1937 for that matter. And then we wouldn't have had any of it, including the death camps. But instead, they sort of gloss right past that and they say, well, war is just part of nature. It falls out of heavens. What you going to do? But by gum, it's heroic. It's represented as like the pinnacle of human existence is suffering during war.
Now, one of the books you talk about a lot is End the Fed by Ron Paul. Ron Paul says very clearly that if we did not have the Fed, we would not be able to afford to go into these wars. Yeah. The Fed manipulates the U.S. dollar so that we can do this. So can you explain that a little bit? Because we are going into war on a financial perversion.
Yeah, so the Fed is basically the venture capitalist of every new crisis. And this is true of wars. It's also true of COVID. Right. If you imagine early in COVID, so, the government says, all right, we're going to shut down the entire economy. GDP is going to fall by half. Tax revenue is going to fall by half. But that's OK. We can just lay off all the government workers. Right. No way. Right. They never would have done the lockdowns. The only reason they could do the lockdowns is because they go to the central bank. They get the Fed to print up $7 trillion to bribe people to sit on the couch. So when we all sat there during COVID and we said, what the heck happened to the American people that they're putting up with this? Well, yeah, they were paid to. They were paid to because the central bank has an unlimited money printer. So that's true in COVID. That's true in every single war. Right. If you sat down in the beginning of 9/11, if you sat down in the beginning of any war that we've had over the past 50 years, all these wars of choice, if you sat down and explained to the American people, so here's what it's going to cost you. Right. We're going to have to get rid of, public schools, but we'll be able to invade this new country. Nobody will put up with it. So the only reason all this stuff can work is that the Fed stands ready to finance all the government deficits. They can finance the war until it gets running to the point where now Americans are dying. At that point, you don't need to boost the public relations anymore. Right now, people are angry. So it's really kind of the venture capitalists. It can stand up, get the war through that seed phase until it can sustain itself with American blood. So we are seeing that this time. This is the standard pattern that will continue as long as you have a central bank.
Peter, we'll get you out of here on this. How close to sort of economic ruin do you think we're sitting right now in the United States? And will this war push us over the edge?
I think as long as we stay out of it, I don't think that we're in major danger. And the reason is because Israel only has so many resources. Israel so far has been doing things surgically. They've been choosing their targets. And partly that's because they have to. They only have so many resources. If, on the other hand, if we jump in with both feet, we move carrier groups over there, we have a lot more resources. We could make this a much bigger war. I hope we don't, because at that point, the entire Trump boom ends. All the momentum he's got right now, the goodwill that he's got fixing the Biden mess, all of that turns around.
Yeah, feels like it. Why do you think he would take that risk? I took him on his word that economic prosperity was one of his top priorities.
Yeah, one of my biggest concerns, and we've had this for 50 years, presidents sit there in these intelligence briefings and, people come in and it's really a dog and pony. It's like a PR show and they just get talked into this stuff. And I remember early in the Trump administration, he was not doing his daily briefings and Politico and the left wingers were concerned. They were like, oh, he's going to lose control. And I was sitting there like, thank God that he's not getting pushed this propaganda every morning. If I had to sit down every morning for half an hour with some, CIA agent who's trying to sell me on war, it wears you down. So I assume, they push. They got smart people trying to sell these wars. And unfortunately, it looks like they've broken through.
Well, that's a more positive spin than the rest of us are taking. So the rest of us are just thinking there must be some kind of compromise, you know? So, I mean, yeah, I really want to give him the benefit of the doubt because of these unorthodox promises that he made. And it's just wearing me down. It's wearing me down. So anyway, thank you for your expertise. Really, really appreciate it. And
go fill up your tanks now.
Yeah, right?
Peter.
Absolutely. Thanks, guys.
Thanks, Peter. Well, I saw a lot of people, just like stores like buying up some like, long-term meal supplies and things like that, getting ready for what this could mean for the United States. Again, you shut down the Straits of Hormuz, you shut down these shipping lanes. It doesn't take much to push us into an economic disaster. So,
and the Fed, so that we can't do it. That's a great way.
Ideally. Yeah. That would be great. All right. Hey, we're going to be talking about what Trump just did at the G7. Also, Canada just gave Zelensky a couple $2 billion because, I guess Canada's just swimming in so much money. It can just hand over money to Zelensky in Ukraine. That's what
2022. That war. Okay.
Just keep throwing bad money
mom
after.
jeans. Come on.
Also, we're going to talk about these embalmers, the white fibrous clots. Well, now embalmers across the country are seeing them at a record pace. We're going to look at all of these folks who are looking at these corpses and finding massive white fibrous clots over the past 5 years. They've never seen it before in their career. So what in the hell is going on? We're going to talk about that coming up. But first, I want to tell you about our friends over at Soul. I love these guys, okay? If you don't want to get a hangover, if you just want to enjoy like a nice kickback drink, I am telling you, you got to check out getsoul.com and try their out-of-office drinks. I'm a huge fan of these guys, okay? If you don't want to, go out and have, get hungover and feel like crap afterwards, but you still want to just have some good vibes, kick back during this summer, at the barbecue, nice little social buzz. You need a little something in the middle of the afternoon to get you through the rest of your inbox. Well, Soul is a wellness brand that believes feeling good should be fun and easy. Soul specializes in delicious hemp-derived THC and CBD products designed to help boost your mood, help you unwind. Their best-selling out-of-office gummies will provide a mild, relaxing buzz. Or you can try their out-of-office drinks. These things are fantastic. I'm telling you, they're really, really great. And you can get them with or without THC, including a variety of things. Capsules, improving your sleep, stress, pain, focus, bloating, all of it. Try it. Just go to their website and just check it out. You're going to get 30% off. So if you're going to have like a 4th of July barbecue and you don't want to have some like heavy IPAs or other drinks out there, give this a try. You'll be like, wow, this is really nice. And then the next day you won't have any kind of hangover at all. GetSoul.com. Get 30% off your order. These guys are fantastic. I'm telling you. Give them a shot. Go to GetSoul.com. Get 30% off your order right now. That's what you can do. All right. Well, we are awaiting our next guests here. While we'll do that, let's just take a few super chats. You can let me know in the comments who's up next here, if we or in our chat room, if we've got our teammates are in and ready to go. But let's see. We had a bunch of super chats come in and a couple of new members. Denise Coach Koch is a new member of our Welcome to the Rebellion. Wow. Abdullah sent 50 redacted gift memberships. Thank you so much for that. That's very kind of you. Rihanna is now a rebel as well. Andres Auk says the Iranian people need our help. Thank you for the super chat. Says the theocratic rule of Iran is nothing but a pest in the world, either multipolar or unipolar. If multi equals bad news for anyone that doesn't live in the EU or US, eventually it's bad for those that do. And other people saying there's I saw another go ahead.
I was just gonna say there are lots of regimes that are bad. That there are ways of dealing with that, in the international community. When you just start bombing them, that takes it to a whole other level.
Right.
And so if you have to struggle so hard to justify it, you're probably not fighting a just war.
Furthermore, doesn't that give the justification of bombing us, given all the unprovoked attacks that we have waged abroad, given the fact that we also have a subjugated population? By that justification, you could have bombed the shit out of the United States during COVID for locking people in their homes, right? Because it was a regime. But I do sort of leave space for this idea that maybe we're wrong. Maybe the people of Iran absolutely want us to overthrow their own government. It's just very strange to wait for a country across the sea to do that for you, right? And so I think we should absolutely think about whether or not this, we see these, I can't tell how much this is propaganda. We see the son of the king of Iran, who is in exile. I don't have his name off the top of my head, saying this is awesome. I'm going to come back to Iran soon. The Ayatollah is falling. We're going to have a great democracy. Maybe that's true, but it's worth remembering that Iran did have a democracy until the CIA overthrew their government over 50 years ago. So how can we know at this point? Go ahead, Philip.
And I just saw an article. I haven't fully read it yet, but it looks like maybe there might be a coup actually in Iran because Ayatollah Khomeini was reportedly removed from key decision making.
Yeah, again, possibly, and apparently he was in the bunker underground, saying that he's turning over basically power to the military. And that like allowing God to continue power in the country. So we know where he is. If he's having the media is sort of saying that he's had like a mental breakdown, that he was reportedly removed from key decision making after a mental breakdown. And yeah, I'll just read you due to a severe deterioration in his mental health. This was published by an opposition outlet on Iran International, saying that he's 86 years old. He may have suffered a nervous breakdown. Of course, remember, we're hearing a lot of this about Putin, too. Remember, Putin was dying. Mm-hmm. Putin was like on dialysis machines. Putin is having a mental breakdown. He's freaking out. And then
Yeah.
Okay, so
all of those things.
Take all of these things with a grain of salt at the moment when you're seeing them posted on social media. So again, that he's turning over his team he's turning over power to the Revolutionary Guard objectives right now. So again, all right, well, we got more news to get to here. We're going to talk about what is going on with all of these embalmers across the United States facing and being aware that they are seeing white fibrous clots inside of the bodies of those corpses that they've been working on. So let's talk about that right now. In fact, why is this all here? And I'm trying to scroll down and find my notes, and I can't. Okay. It's like suddenly all these things
happening today. The dog's barking.
I know there's like all like notes just popped into my craft document here. Anyway, I want to talk to retired major of the U.S. Air Force Thomas Haviland, who has been on a crusade over the last maybe like 5 years or longer, trying to get to the bottom of these white fibrous clots that have been appearing inside of corpses and living Americans as they are going to the doctor, or they are sadly winding up on the operating table and passing away. And embalmers across the country have been finding these white fibrous clots in these bodies. Well, our next guest, Thomas Haviland, was just in Tennessee at the Funeral Directors Association, where he was there as a guest speaker, but he asked a pretty remarkable question to ask all these embalmers, how many of you have been seeing this, and how many of them raised their hand. Thomas, great to see you. Welcome back to the show, and thank you for your continued work on shining a light on this horrific, really, I don't know what the word to call it would be.
Epidemic? Could we use that word?
Could we call it an intentional? What would you say, Thomas? I'll put the words in your mouth. What would you say? This is an intentional destruction of our race by these people.
I don't know if it's intentional or not, Clayton, but it sure is prevalent. We've been tracking these white fibrous clots that these embalmers have been seeing in their corpses for the last 5 years, actually. It started with COVID, with a few of the embalmers seeing it during COVID. Then it progressed and exploded in 2021 after the rollout of the COVID vaccines. But we caught a big break about a week ago. Actually, it started last year when we were running our 2024 Worldwide Embalmer Blood Clot Survey. The president of the Tennessee Funeral Directors Association, Mr. Taylor Moore, reached out to me and said, Tom, hey, I'd like to have you come speak to our embalmers and funeral directors at our annual conference coming up in June of 2025. And that happened just about a week ago on June the 8th. I traveled to Franklin, Tennessee, just south of Nashville, and went to their convention and talked to the embalmers there. And we actually have on video footage, Clayton, about 30 embalmers and funeral directors raising their hands, and about 2/3 of them, 18 out of the actually 28 that took the survey and were there in the room that day, said they were seeing the white fibrous clots in 2025. So about 2/3 of the embalmers that were present at that conference and are on video are confirming what we've all known for some time now, that these clots they exist and they are indeed prevalent. In fact, we asked them, I took a survey, a paper survey of those embalmers, and in that survey, of the 28 that responded, 25 of them actually do active embalming right now. And of those, like I said, 18 said they were seeing the white fibrous clots, and 10 said they were not. So that's a 64%. And then when we asked them what percentage of your bodies are you seeing the clots in, that averaged 17%. So 1 out of every 6 corpses contains these unusual white fibrous clots, still in 2025.
Let's, I don't know if there's sound on this or not, but I wanted to show, so we have the video verification of what you were just talking about here. Is there sound on this? Let's play it. This is you asking these embalmers, how many of you are seeing this?
In fact, embalmers, can I get a show of hands in the room? How many folks in here are actually doing active embalming right now? Raise your hands, leave your hands up. Okay.
All right, so this is active embalming.
Of those people, leave them up. Of those people that are doing active embalming, if you're seeing these white fibrous clots over the last few years, keep your hand up. If you're not seeing them, please put your hand down. Okay?
So almost the entire room keeps their hand up when you ask, are you seeing these white fibrous clots? Almost everyone. And like 1 or 2 people put their hands down. This is
right, and that was confirmed in the paper survey that I took later on that day, and I allowed the embalmers to take it anonymously. And so this is a big deal, Clayton. This is the first time we have official acknowledgement from a United States State Funeral Director Association. These clots are indeed happening and that they're quite prevalent. In addition to the white fibrous clots, about 70% of the embalmers and funeral directors said they're still seeing what's called microclots. They describe it as what looks like coffee grounds or dirty blood in the corpses. As you're draining the blood off the corpse, trying to get the formaldehyde in, they see what looks like coffee grounds in the blood. And this is a indication of a phenomenon called microclotting, which can be just as dangerous as these white fibrous clots. You know, we think these things are causing strokes and heart attacks. The microclotting occurs at the capillary level, your very small blood vessels, and it can block the exchange of oxygen at the lungs and then the carrying of that oxygen to all the major organs of the body, including your brain, your eyes. And the embalmers were seeing that, unfortunately, and also about 17% of the corpses, too. 1 out of 6 corpses. Yeah. So this is a nasty, and this is a phenomenon they used to see prior to COVID, but in much less than 5% of their corpses, typically in patients that had heavy chemotherapies. This is at least a tripling of the microclotting phenomenon. And of course, these, like I said, embalmers with 20 or 30 years of experience had never seen the white fibrous clots prior to the years of COVID, and then an explosion of them starting in 2021 with the vaccines.
So we're talking about correlation, right? We had the pandemic, we had the vaccine rollout, and then this is happening. Now, something RFK Jr. says many times is we have so many toxins in the American society that we can't know what's causing what, vaccines, everything. So, but you're saying that this pivotal moment was not when we had, I don't know, red dye number 5 or whatever, that there's a pivotal point that we can observe.
Yes, Natalie. If you look at old pathology books prior to 2020, you won't see these white fibrous clots. There was a condition called white clot syndrome way back in the late 1980s, early 1990s, and that was being driven by the drug heparin. It was some people were having an allergic reaction to heparin that was too strong of a strength. So they actually reduced the strength of that heparin, and that helped that problem go away back in the late 80s, early 90s. What's interesting about that is heparin, that was actually white clot syndrome based upon the element sulfur. This, we believe, is based on the element phosphorus, and the two of them just happen to sit side by side on the periodic table. So we believe the phospholipid nanoparticles and the spike protein from either the COVID virus or the COVID vaccine is becoming phosphorylated as well, and it's binding with our body's natural blood clotting protein called fibrinogen. We have a blood clotting protein called fibrinogen. It's in a liquid form in our blood plasma. Whenever there's damage done to the endothelial lining of inside of our blood vessels, our arteries and our veins, then that triggers a conversion of that fibrinogen into a white solid called fibrin. And it's supposed to look like what's on the left side of the screen there. Nice, smooth spaghetti noodles. They kind of form a net, and they collect your red blood cells and your platelets and form a nice clot. So whenever you have a cut, that clot will form. And then eventually when the wound is healed, then another enzyme we have called plasmin comes along, attaches to that nice, smooth spaghetti, breaks the clot down, and then it goes away. You're good to go again. But look on the right of the screen. Look what happens when the fibrinogen is combined with the spike protein, either from the COVID virus or from the COVID vaccine. It becomes all twisted, misfolded, and has all these nasty nodules on it. And then it becomes difficult for that enzyme plasmin to break down the clot. And then what happens is the clot tends to grow and persist and become these nasty, large, white fibrous clots. If you go back to that image for a second and go to the next slide on that one, you'll actually see that, back up one slide, and you'll see that image right there. Embalmer Richard Hirschman sent about a dozen of the embalmer's clots that he pulled out of corpses to a neuroscientist in Japan named Dr. Kevin McCarran, and he looked at the clots, a thin 5 micrometer slice under a scanning electron microscope at a very high magnification of 5,000 times. And look what he sees there from the embalmer clot. See how twisted the fibrin is? See how misfolded it is? See all the nodules on there? Now, you tell me, which one does it look like more, Natalie? Does it look more like the smooth spaghetti, or does it look like the nasty fibrin that's in contact with the spike protein from the virus or the vaccine?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's disturbing.
Yeah, so basically we have visible proof, Clayton and Natalie, at both the eye level, right? You can see these things. And here's another one. This is a nasty one here. This is a 5.5-inch clot that was taken out of the abdominal aorta, one of the largest blood vessels in the body. So we have visual proof at the eye level. We also have proof at the microscopic level that the spike protein from either the virus or the vaccine is doing tremendous damage to the vascular system in a significant number of people, right? If it's in 16, 17% of the dead, 1 out of 6 corpses, well, it brings into question, well, what percentage of the living are walking around right now with these white fibrous clots forming inside them?
Well, that was going to be my next question. And how do we figure that out?
Right. What is the next step to get a real research project going?
Well, and how can we solve it? I mean, if I'm walking around, if people who got this vaccine or got this spike protein, they're walking around with this somewhere, or they've gotten booster shots, they got all this crap floating around in their body. And how do they get it out of there? I mean, is there a way to get it out of there that we know of?
Not once these white fibrous clots form, we don't think there's any way to dissolve them or get them out. I've been in contact with a cath lab whistleblower from Jacksonville, Florida. He's an endovascular specialist and cardiologist who's been admitted to me that he's been removing these same white fibrous clots for the last 4 years. And what he does, he works in what's called a catheterization lab, a cath lab for short. And he goes into the person's body, a living person, with flexible catheters that either scrape the clot out, they suck it out with a vacuum, or he actually can lasso the clot and pull it out that way as well. So they try clot-busting drugs like tissue plasminogen activator, TPA, and they work great against traditional grape jelly clots or what's called chicken fat clots, but they don't seem to have any effect at all on these white fibrous clots. So the trick is to not have them form in the first place with the spike protein, which we think is causing the problem mainly. So the best way to do that is Dr. Peter McCullough, for example, recommends drugs, or actually natural supplements like nattokinase, bromelain, curcumin, to help detox the body from the spike protein so the clots don't form in the first place.
Well, Thomas, I know you've been on this story for more than 5 years now. I think we had you first on. I feel like it's been 5 years since you've been on this story, trying to get people to pay attention to this, and it seems like you've broken through finally. It's taken a lot of hard work and dedication. I know you and others like Dr. Ruby, Mike Adams have been calling attention to this over the years. And what are you hoping for next? What are you hoping for from the Trump administration?
Definitely, since the Trump administration's in there, Robert F. Kennedy Jr., Dr. Jay Bhattacharya, Dr. Marty Macri, those people, I'm hoping that they will now basically relieve me of my job so I don't have to do this anymore. And they actually start looking at this problem because, like I said, the evidence is pretty overwhelming that these clots exist. They are prevalent, and the timing with the introduction of the COVID vaccines is very, very suspicious. So, I think they need to get off their rear ends, Clayton and Natalie, and do their jobs and look at this. And I'd be very happy to offer my time for free to work with them to help assist them in running surveys and checking in with embalmers, funeral directors, cardiologists, vascular surgeons, endovascular specialists that know this problem is happening, but until now have been staying silent about it.
Well, I think you're an American hero. Thank you for your service. Thank you for what you're doing and calling attention to this. I know you've been absolutely relentless on this, so thank you so much, Thomas. Great to see you, and if there's anything we can always do to help, and I just want to say this. We've never been able to have you live with us on YouTube. We've only ever been able to share your story on Rumble. And I think we've turned a corner because now YouTube has pulled back on their anti-COVID discussions, and now we can actually have you here live on YouTube. So this is I think we're breaking through, and it's not being censored in the way that it used to be. So that's good news. There we go.
It is. Thanks, Clayton.
Yeah. Thanks, Thomas. Great to see you as always. Thanks, Major.
All right. Well, coming up, we're going to talk about why the Trump administration seems to now have backburnered peace with Russia. This is it's not a priority anymore. So what's going to happen there? Because we remind you that people are still dying. People are still dying in Gaza. That we're just not paying attention anymore. We are, though, so we're going to get to that. Before we do, though, we want to tell you about our friends over at Hillsdale College, because Hillsdale offers more than 40 free online courses. That's right, 40 free online courses, so you can learn about the works of C.S. Lewis, stories in the book of Genesis, the meaning of the U.S. Constitution, the rise and fall of the Roman Republic, all of this with the fantastic offerings of Hillsdale. They are self-paced, so you can start them and finish them whenever and wherever. It's a free course. We want to let you know that there's a new one called Introduction to Aristotle's Ethics, How to Lead a Good Life. Have you ever wondered, how do we even define what a good life is? How can you live one? In this course, Hillsdale College President Larry P. Arnn leads you through the most important lessons of Aristotle's ethics, including teachings about the human nature, the meaning of a good life, the virtues necessary for happiness. So check that out. Again, that's totally free. So right now you can enroll by heading on over to hillsdale.edu/redacted. There's no cost. It's easy to get started. One more time, that's hillsdale.edu/redacted. To enroll for free. One more time, that's hillsdale.edu. How are you doing?
I'm doing good. Just watching what's going on in the world right now and seeing what's, Tel Aviv is on fire. There's some Iranian accounts just a short time ago posting that, tonight is going to be, they're going to unleash hell on earth on Tel Aviv tonight. So
I wonder how the rest of you who don't live in a war zone are coping with this, because for me, it's so acute when I open a device and then I go for a ballet pickup and then I feed my family, and it's a constant assault on our psyche, and it feels wrong I'm just so curious how you take this and then go back to your regular lives, because let's have a joint therapy session. I need to know how you live through it. How are we doing this? And I think that I can remember, do you, when we were sold the lies on the weapons of mass destruction and we watched on CNN as we bombed Baghdad, and how that felt as, as a student at the time. I was a child. I
felt it acutely because my brother was in the first Gulf War. So my brother went in with the Navy SEALs into Baghdad, was there ahead of everyone. He was in buildings in downtown Baghdad, and they were literally directing Tomahawk cruise missile fire at themselves, basically, shooting it towards themselves. And then, of course, we were all sold this, tie a yellow ribbon around a tree narrative and pushing for, manufacturing consent for war. CNN really made its chops with the first Gulf War. Wolf Blitzer with his little helmet on the whole time and making their money off of that. And that's how these networks make money. That's how the media makes money.
Yeah.
So, they're actively, they know how much money they're going to be able to make off of this war, and it's disgusting. And that's why, we are actively trying to prevent this war. And, I would love to cover like kitty cat stories on this show.
Sure. There are two main themes emerging as I ask you how you are coping with this. One is prayer, and the second is marijuana. That's what you're saying in our chat right now. So, okay, smoke if you got them.
What if you combine, marijuana and prayer? Well,
okay, I needed that. Thank you for that.
People in our chat, Felicia says Trump did a 180. It does feel like that, doesn't it?
Yeah. I feel like personally, I just deal with it with stoic fatalism. It's just like there's just nothing I can do about it from here. So I'm just gonna sit in my office.
Well, but why are you at work? You work on an anti-war show. That is what you're doing about it. You do something about it every day. So,
well, I hope
you're a hero, Philip. Don't deny it.
I hope that our show, in a small way, I hope that other like independent media shows, because we're up against like the Fox Newses of the world, the MSNBCs of the world, the CNNs of the world, the New York Times, the Washington Post, Sky News, like all of these people pushing us into war, manufacturing consent, and you hope that there's a strong enough group of us out there that are saying absolutely not, no war. No United States involvement in a war in Iran. Please, no regime change operations. And you hope that message is heard and resonates with people who are currently in the White House. I know J.D. Vance is watching, not our show necessarily, but he's watching because he just posted recently, this afternoon, about he's aware of the discussions right now about regime change and pushing us into war in Iran. And so he's paying attention to this.
Right. And I was thinking about this today. Oh, go ahead, please.
I was just going to say, it always makes me think, too, how many times we have people on this show that say thank you for being one of the few anti-war voices out there. And it just shocks me that how few anti-war voices there are out there, considering all of the times we've been duped into these wars over BS.
Right.
Yeah.
But the last few wars did not have a social media platform, did not have an independent media. We do now. We have to somehow believe that it makes a difference. You're here, you're watching this show, you tell the algorithm that this is important. So thank you. You're doing your part by being here. We're doing our part. So I was thinking about this today because J.D. Vance comes from an impoverished Appalachian community. That is the community that suffered the most death during the forever wars in the Middle East. So he knows acutely that if we get drawn into another war in the Middle East, who it is that will be sent to die. It is not the elites. And so hopefully he remembers that as this continues to happen. All right, well, I want to talk about the war in Ukraine because guess what? That's still happening. It may not be in vogue. It is sort of out of fashion, like skinny jeans, but it is still a problem. The United States still is shipping weapons. Europe is still supporting it with whatever money they can create out of thin air. And now the president has said, we can't actually send a delegation to Moscow for peace talks because we're a little busy. Why do you think that is? I want to remind you what Abraham Lincoln reportedly said in 1861 when asked whether the Union should provoke a second front with Britain while still fighting the Confederacy. One war at a time. He said, one war at a time. Well, today's version might be one fake peace effort at a time because the U.S. has quietly postponed peace talks with Russia over the war in Ukraine, probably because we're too busy fighting a war in the Middle East now that we're pretending not to fight. Russian Foreign Ministry spokeswoman Maria Zakharova confirmed that U.S. negotiators canceled the next round of peace talks that were supposed to happen in Moscow. So this was a next step up. No more meeting at a neutral place, no more meeting in Turkey. Now it's just not even on our radar. As she said, as of today, the next meeting within the framework of bilateral consultations on eliminating irritants to normalize the operation of diplomatic missions on both countries has been canceled at the initiative of the American negotiators. So she basically said, I'm here. I'm going to sit by the phone. When you're ready, we're ready. So the war in Ukraine is just going to have to tread water for a while people are still dying. But that's how it goes, I guess, if you've got a more important war. It does very much feel like the war with Russia was child's play compared to what we're heading into in a war with Iran. Interestingly enough, over the weekend, President Trump said he would be okay with President Putin negotiating peace between Iran and Israel, which would mean where would the United States sit at that table? Okay, let's play this out. Putin's the moderator, Israel on one side, Iran on the other. You would have to think that the United States would sit on the side of table as Israel. That's what leadership has indicated. So we will be a party now to peace negotiations brokered by Putin. This stuff writes itself, right? And what is his leverage here? Well, we're going to talk tomorrow to U.S.-Russian academic, political scientist and expert in U.S.-Russia relations, Gilbert Doctorow, because maybe Russia has a leverage that we just can't manage.
So also there's a narrative emerging right now in the mainstream media. The Wall Street Journal headline a few days ago, I bookmarked this because I just find it stunning. It's called "Where Russia is Advancing in Ukraine and What It Hopes to Gain." Moscow's offensive is designed to make Western leaders think that the Kremlin victory is inevitable. So basically what they're... It's a load of garbage.
Have those idiots not seen the war map that was clearly specified in early 2022? We were told what the battlegrounds were. It's not new. It should not be a surprise to anyone who has followed this every day. So they're pretending as if Russia is taking unmarked territory.
It's an illusion.
Right.
So the idea is that according to the Wall Street Journal, even though they're capturing a record amount of territory, they're not actually winning. It's just an illusion of doing so in order to feint the West into thinking that they are. I mean, this is how dumb the mainstream media is right now. Oh, and by the way, just a few minutes ago, Ukraine launched a devastating shelling of civilians in Donetsk. Once again, according to journalist Eva Bartlett, just a few minutes ago, the Ukrainian armed forces shelled Donetsk, the very area that they say they want back, of course. So they're this is what they've been doing since 2014, is launching a genocide against the people that live in Donetsk, Luhansk, Donbass. 10 people were wounded, and there are fatalities. We're still getting numbers on that. It was in the middle of a residential area. It was an apartment building completely destroyed. No military targets in sight. But this is what they've been doing, again, since 2014. And they apparently decided, I guess, we don't want to be like Israel, just keep like shelling and launching attacks inside of these civilian areas. So, but we should also point out the military side of this, because I was diving into some data today on the Ukrainian forces side of things. And it's been devastating for the Ukrainian forces right now, according to reports in Simplicus. And actually, this has been confirmed in Ukrainian with Ukrainian military leaders in discussions live on television in Ukraine, where, in fact, I'm going to pull this up and quote this directly so I'm being accurate here. Ukrainian forces right now are basically being used, one soldier to basically guard 1 kilometer of territory. Think about that. One soldier being used to guard on the front lines 1 kilometer. One battalion, 60 kilometers. The maximum under their guidelines is 15 kilometers. So one battalion is now being stretched all the way out. And in interviews, Ukrainian soldiers are admitting that Russia's forces are out, what's the word I'm looking for? Out positioning them, or out...
outmaneuvering?
No, 10 to 1. The amount of manpower right now is 10 to 1.
Outnumbered.
According to the data this morning, 10 to 1. And one battalion is being used to stretch the entire land at 15, instead of 15 kilometers, 60 kilometers. That's one soldier basically per kilometer. So this is all an illusion. And meanwhile, Russia just launched some major attacks inside of Kiev only just a few hours ago. So while everyone's focused on Iran right now, and the Trump administration, I guess, is pulling back on any kind of peace talk discussions with Russia at all, the war continues there, and it's been absolutely devastating. But the Western media, and don't forget, though, that Canada just gave $2 billion today to Zelensky. So there's that. So another $2 billion to Zelensky to piss down the toilets if they want.
That's nice. Okay, do that if you want. Well, let us know what you think is the outcome, the impending outcome of that conflict, given we're not that interested in it anymore, I suppose. other people's sons die. All right. Well, that's going to do it for us today. It's going to be a busy week. Lock and load, you guys. Stay with us. We will be back tomorrow. We're going to talk about whether or not Russia can broker a peace between Iran on the one side and Israel and the United States on the other, because we're in it, whether you want to think that or not. And we're going to talk about, again, the doomsday economy. We got to stay here. We got to do it. We got to do the work. What is it? Oh, before we do that, though, I want to tell you about our friends over at American Financing, because we're all feeling it. We've been warning now. Costs may go up because of this war, just when our economy was recovering. You might be thinking, well, should we call American Financing to refinance and pay off our credit card debt? And then you second guess yourself because you may have a low mortgage rate. Well, if you do the math, you're not really saving yourself money if you're paying a low interest on the house, but then high interest on your everyday expenses. That doesn't make sense. Well, here's the truth. If you're only making minimum payments on that debt, it will follow you for years. So American Financing can teach you to leverage your bad debt, turn it into good debt. They're saving their average customer $800 a month by using their equity to break free from credit card debt. And again, hoarding your equity is something that, we're sort of told by base level financial experts, but wealthy people don't do that. They leverage their assets in order to build wealth day in, day out. So you owe it to yourself to learn this technique. You could even get yourself out of a mortgage payment or two and free up some money, give yourself some breathing room. So call them, let them teach you this. It's 866-890-8434, or head on over to americanfinancing.net/redacted. Again, that's americanfinancing.net/redacted, or call 866-890-8434.
All right, so thank you guys for all subscribing. Thank you guys so much. Yeah, it got dark outside because a big thunderstorm came through. We got all the windows open here. So yeah, people are like, "Why'd you guys get so brown all of a sudden?" Because a huge thunderstorm just came through. So
somebody said we look orange.
Yeah, so I apologize. The lights got changed here, which we're working on in the studio. But anyway, so thank you guys so much for subscribing to the show. We really appreciate it, whether it's on Rumble or on X. I should also on X or on YouTube as well. I should also mention we have a daily newsletter, and it's totally free. Please subscribe to that. It's delivered to your inbox first thing in the morning if you go to redacted.inc and you just click on sign up for our newsletter. Click subscribe, and then it will be delivered to your inbox first thing in the morning. You will receive a welcome email. It might go to your spam folder or junk folder just from me, so you just need to confirm that. Move it over to your inbox and confirm that, yes, you do want to receive the newsletter. We try to cover like 4 or 5 of the big stories of the day, things you might have missed while you were sleeping, cover some of the gold markets, silver markets, all of that stuff, and it's free. So redacted.inc, it's not .com, .inc is the place to go to sign up.
And we want to apologize. We were going to talk to David Creighton about Canada today. We told you we would. He had an internet outage, so he was not able to join us. He hopefully will be back later the week because we will talk about that. If you joined us last week for our emergency broadcast about when this war began, you'll know that we too had an internet outage. We thought it was some kind of deep state sabotage. It was not. We had construction outside, and we walked out, and there was a contractor holding our internet line
in his hand,
like
literally a big power shovel, whatever you call it, like a digger, and they're and it was like there was our internet in two pieces.
Yeah,
like,
I don't think that person was from the deep state. I'm pretty sure, but you never know. So we apologize. We didn't get to say a proper goodbye. We are going to do that now. We're saying say a proper goodbye, Clayton. We will see you tomorrow.
Proper goodbye, Clayton.